until here, you know about the sarcomer and thick and thin filaments. The other structure that located in the skeletal muscle are transverse tubules or T-tubules. Transverse tubules, as their name, located transversally to the sarcomers and myofilament, and also the skeletal muscle include the sarcoplasmic reticulum that store calcium ion. When the muscle is stimulated to contraction by nerve impulses, these calcium released from the sarcoplasmic reticulum. Sarcoplasmic reticulum, in all of the cell have tubular structures, and the part of these sarcoplasmic reticulum close to the T-tubules a little expanded and form the terminal cisterna. They form a sac-like structures that named cisterna. T-tubules are continuous with the sarcolemma, as you see here, yes, that they continuous or some enfolding of the sarcolemma toward the deepest part of the cell. What do in the cell by these structures? At first, one T-tubules plus two terminal cisterna that are close or near to the T-tubule form the triad structure that include a single T-tubules and the two terminal cisterna that form a triad that are a special characteristic in the skeletal or striated muscle, not other type of muscle. But what do they in the contraction? The SER or sarcoplasmic reticulum store calcium ion, and when they stimulated by nerve impulses, they release calcium ion that to the cells and the myofilament and each sarcomer access to them. In the other hand, the nerves ending that I explained for you in the later slide receive to the cell membrane that these distribution of the nerve impulses done by T-tubules to deepest part of the cells, that the T-tubule and the SER, or it's better that we told that triad, help to the distribution of the calcium ion and also nerve impulses to different part of the cell. The nerve impulses received to the cell, to the muscle cell or fiber in the site that named neuromuscular junction between the neuron and muscle cell. The neuron part is a terminal arborization of the axon that you know about it more in the nervous tissue that form in the axonal branching form the synaptic nerve that include the vesicles that contain neurotransmitters. In the adjust to it, there is the muscle cell that's for the increasing of the surface for the binding of the neurotransmitters to the receptors on the muscle cell. They have some enfolding, that this enfolding named junctional folding. The neuromuscular junction or motor end plate is where the nerve and muscle meet together and they innervate the muscle fiber. In each neuromuscular junction, there is a synaptic end bulbs here. synaptic end bulbs are swelling of the axon terminal. Yes, axon terminal that contain synaptic vesicles that fill with acetylcholine, the neurotransmitter of the skeletal muscle is acetylcholine. The synaptic end bulb or axonal end bulb include synaptic vesicles that containing neurotransmitters. In the other side, the muscle cell include the junctional folding that here located the receptors for acetylcholine. Motor end plate membrane, yes, this membrane of the muscle cell named motor end plate membrane contain around 30 million ACH receptors that in the contraction the ACH released from synaptic bulbs of the axonal terminal attached to the receptors on the muscle cell, and the joining of the ACH to its receptors resulted in contraction. Here, yes, the ACH, acetylcholine, released from synaptic vesicles is a synaptic cleft or a space in the muscle cell or in junctional fold. There are the ACH receptor. The ACH bind to ACH receptors. That the binding of the ACH to its receptors open the natrium and potassium channels, and the muscle action or contraction produce, and finally the additional acetylcholine broken down by acetylcholine esterase that located in the synaptic cleft. Yes, here show the axonal terminal branch that, as you see here, received to one part of the muscle cells, not in other part, and here release the neurotransmitters. But T tubules that located in the skeletal muscle distribute these nerve impulses to other part of the cell. Yes, the neurotransmitter released just in this part. Yes, but the transverse tubules spreads quickly from the sarcolemma along the T tubule to other part, and also calcium ions released from the terminal cisterna, and finally the action potential done in the muscle cell and contraction occurred in them. Motor unit include the motor neurons and all muscle fibers that innervated by them. See in this picture, there is 3 motor neurons. 1, 2, 3. As you see here, we follow the red one. Yes, the red is a motor neuron 2. This is a motor neuron in the spinal cord, and the muscle fibers that you see here as brown color, the muscle fibers that are 3 innervated from this neuron collection of the 1 motor neuron plus the nerve fibers that innervated by this neuron named motor unit. That average is around 150, but maybe the range of them is maybe between the 4 or several hundred muscle fiber in a motor unit. Yes, for example here, the motor unit number 1, yes, innervated 1, 2, 3, and 4 that have blue color. Yes, these 4 muscle fiber plus this motor neuron named 1 motor unit. The finer movements, for example, the eye muscle have fewer muscle fiber compared to motor unit. The muscle fiber is spread throughout the muscle, and the stimulation of one motor unit causes a weak contraction in whole of the muscle tissue or in one muscle. Another organization of the skeletal muscle is a existence of some connective tissue type. The connective tissue surrounded the muscle fascicle, muscle cells. Epimysium is a membrane or sheet that is a type of dense connective tissue that sheet one skeletal muscle that we named it anatomically, such as, for example, biceps muscle, quadriceps muscle, pectoralis muscle. Yes, whole entire of the muscle surrounded by a epimysium. That is a type of dense connective tissue that mostly include collagen fiber that connected to deep fascia and separate muscle from surrounding tissue. The epimysium sends some septa to inside of the muscle that form the perimysium. Perimysium surrounded each fascicle. What is fascicle? Group of muscle fiber that contain the blood vessels and nerve cycle. And endomysium is a fine sheet of loose connective tissue that wrapping each muscle that contain the capillary nerve fibers and also satellite cells. That in the slide 44 you can see the schematic picture of them. Epimysium sheeted entire of the muscle send some septa to inside of the muscle and form the perimysium that include the nerves and vessels, and again the perimysium send septa to the inside of the cell and form the endomysium that surrounded one cell or one fiber. That the endomysium include the satellite cells and also the capillary. These connective tissue are necessary for development of the muscle tissue in the embryonic period, and in the contraction they are necessary for the distribution of the mechanical force to the whole part of the muscle. This is a scanning electron microscope for endomysium, schematic endomysium, perimysium that surrounded one fascicle, and epimysium that surrounded one muscle. Here is a small part of the muscle tissue with a special staining, epimysium, that is a dense connective tissue that surrounded the entire of the muscle. Perimysium surrounded one fascicle, that each fascicle is a group of the muscle fiber, and muscle fiber surrounded by endomysium, that is a Loose connective tissue include the capillary and satellite cells. As you see here in this transverse section, the nucleus mostly located in the peripheral part of the cells, that is a characterization of the skeletal muscle.